Show you a little bit of a slideshow of what's our upcoming season's going to look like. We're going to delve back into a little bit of our past history, and then we're going to go right into a robot demonstration.
All right. And there are, I think, some mics over there. Do you have one? Let's just make sure it's working. So is it on?
Am I good? Okay.
Can everyone hear? Okay,
All
so is this where you'd like us to begin, Mr. Groves?
Yeah, I would say yes.
All right, go to it. And let's give him a warm welcome again. Proud of you. We're proud of you tonight.
All right, everyone can hear me, right? Fantastic. Okay, hello. Thank you all for coming, truly. We're really excited to be here and to be invited just to come in and share a little bit with you what we do. My name is Gabe LeClaire. I'm a senior up at the high school. I'm joined here by a few of our members, including Harry and Cody especially, who are our driver and operator for this year's robot. We were asked to come and share a bit of what First Robotics is, what we do, and the impact it has on the community and on us as high school students.
Talk right into the mic, okay? So
Right here? Is this good?
Yeah, that's better.
I haven't used one of these before, I'll be honest.
That's all right. Just speak right into it.
We're really excited about this opportunity, and we hope that in doing this we can shed some light on one of the school's newer and I would say more exciting extracurriculars, although I'm a little biased on that one. So, what is FIRST? FIRST stands for Inspiration and Recognition of Science and Technology, and it was a program created for high schoolers to compete and learn from each other in engineering competition, initially across the country and later across the world. It was founded in '92 in New Hampshire, so not far from here, and has since grown to over 5,000 teams globally. It is a competition designed to both show engineering prowess in individuals and also to learn from groups and individuals whom you would never otherwise have never met. So for us personally, we started in FIRST in 2017. This was before my time. 2017 was our rookie season. We came in, figured, it'll be fun. Let's see what happens. And had no idea what we were doing. And somehow, some way, we ended up globally in the top 1% of scoring for that year's game. It changes every year. And we went to Worlds, which was in St. Louis that year? Yes. A team that had no idea what it was doing from Little Bucksport, Maine, was in the top 1% in scoring and went to Worlds. That, even if I wasn't a part of it, that would be pretty neat to me. And then the next year, in 2018, we continued the trend. Every year the game changes, so you have to continually adapt your robots. And this year, we were once again #1 in the world at one of the game piece designs. That was Switch. This was before my time, so I'm not entirely sure how that was, but again, Little Bucksport, Maine, #1 in the world. We were going up against teams that were funded by NASA, going up against teams that have mentors from engineering firms across the world, and we had no idea what we were doing, and we were holding our own, which, again, a little biased, but that's pretty cool to me. 2019, we were starting to get our act together. We were starting to really understand what First Robotics was, how we had to operate and really come into our own as a team. Once again, we were in the top 1% globally in game piece scoring, a little bit of a theme here. And we were on something called First Updates Now, which is like a first newsletter, I'll call it, something like that. And people started to slowly but surely take notice of who we were. The number started getting around, our design started being noticed, and slowly but surely we were figuring out what we were and who we were going to be as a team. Which brings us to 2020, which had a lot of promise until something called COVID happened. And that didn't go too well. We had one competition in Massachusetts where we placed second and showed a lot of promise. We were very happy with our robot that year, which you can see in a picture over there on the left. The shooter, especially for that year, was fantastic. We were really excited for what we were going to do that year, and then it all shut down. So that happened. And then in 2021, we couldn't do competitions like we normally would. We couldn't do travel, you couldn't do crossing state lines, none of that. So what they did was come up with something called the First at-Home Challenges. It took the game from the previous year and adapted it for use in schools, in gymnasiums, in shop basements, anything you could think of. And we built a complete new robot, which you can see again on the left. This one was Bounty. And we figured, well, we have the time. Let's just make this as comically good as we possibly can. And we were pretty successful in that. We were number 2 in shooting speed. We were the second fast in the world at getting the game pieces out of the robot, and number 1 in accuracy. We were on a First Robotics news show called Behind the Bumpers, which is a sort of interview where someone, in that case online, goes through a bunch of questions, and it's televised, and it's gone through and goes to all the teams around the world. And I believe everyone who's here for that is here right now. And that was a very interesting experience. It exposed us as a team to the broader robotics community as it be. You start seeing your number pop up in forum posts from Israel, and you're like, what is this? But it's happening, and people are seeing your ideas and seeing what you're doing, and which is just unheard of, especially for, where we come from. So, one of the more special things with us, at least to me, is there are places in, say, South Portland where you have robotics teams and engineering schools. That's all they do. It's an entire school where they're just in the shop all the time. That's not us. We're just a normal public high school, but we bring kids in through other ways. There's the 20 or 30 of us dedicated to robotics, but we have shop classes, we have CAD classes, we have engineering classes, we have welding classes. And we use all those resources to pool in and try and teach as many kids as much as we can while getting the best robot product possible. It's worked really well, and it's something that we really pride ourselves on to this day. So, during that process, we break into a few groups. Now, there's something called CAD, which, for those of you who may not be aware, is computer animated design. What we use is something called Onshape, and we can go through online and create digital replicas of parts, robots, game fields, anything we want to precise accuracy, which allowed us to not only create much easier functioning robots that were much less finicky, but the CAD curriculum was basically stolen from UMaine. So our CAD students are getting the same exact material that UMaine engineering students are, which allows Bucksport High School graduates to go on and have great success in those courses, especially freshman year, because they already know everything. And we've seen that happen a couple times up in Orono, which is pretty interesting, honestly, at least to me. And we have a ton of resources through that. The Silvernail family, who are alum of the high school, donated a lot of money so we could get CNC routers, a plasma cutting table, a CNC mill, which are all super useful in creating the precision parts that we use to create this. Basically, all of this robot was machined. Barely any of it was made by hand. It's pretty incredible. Once those parts are machined, we have to put it together. This is me, so again, a little bias. We have to go through, take everything, put it together as it's assembled on the computer, building the gearboxes, which is not easy, despite whatever Gross may say, building entire drivetrains, climber systems, improvising along the way, fixing it when Harry inevitably breaks it. Just lots of things piling together that make for one of the most challenging and yet one of the most fun experiences that I think you can have in high school, personally. To make it run, we have a code team that does computer work that I do not understand. They are able to go through and create autonomous courses where the robot will do a thing all on its own. They can create routines where you just press a button and it does whatever you want it to do. I have no idea how they do it, but it's really fun to watch. And then they wire everything up, and everything in here is perfectly safe. It's all wired up, it's all ready to go by high schoolers, and it works, which I'll admit, I came in as a sophomore, I was a little late. I did not believe that when I first heard it. And then after that, we have a team dedicated to marketing, which is especially important to FIRST, where a lot of things are based on inter-team communication. It's making friendships, and it's building the connections with people from other states, other countries, that you otherwise would never have a chance to, and using those to learn from each other and make each other better, which is the whole idea of FIRST. And they go through and they work with local sponsors, they work with larger sponsors. That's where that banner comes in. That's where all the names on the back of our shirts come from. And they do tons of community work, especially more so before COVID happened, but what are we going to do about that? And they really do make the world of difference for us when we're trying to build this thing. So events, we do a lot of stuff. Now, a normal event follows a 3-day structure, and I'll be fairly quick about this because, yeah. Day one is just getting there. It's getting there in a pecking order. You go through a bracket, and you see who wins the event. It's a ton of fun, and it's really interesting to watch, especially when your team isn't involved because you have no stakes in it. So you can just sit there and watch all these robots do these amazing things and just enjoy it for what it is. During these events, we are again split into a couple things. Drive team, which is those two, drive the robot. They're on the field. They're representing what we've been able to do. They're out there having fun, shooting the shots, making the climbs, and breaking things to bring to the pit team, which is me. They go out and break the robot and bring it back to me to fix. We spend a lot of time talking and learning to other teams in the pits. There's a bit of a theme with that here. And you try and figure out how other teams have learned, how other teams have adapted to problems, and then you'll end up with a catastrophic failure and your next match is in 5 minutes and you have to work through that. And somehow it always works out. It's a really, really fun challenge. To do that, you need to know what other robots are. So we have scouting teams in the stands. They watch other robots. They watch our robot. They see who can do what well. They see who can't do what well, pardon me. And then they give us that information so we can go in informed and know what's going to happen. Because nothing is worse when you go into a match thinking a team can climb and they can't. Or a team saying they can climb and they can't. It gets interesting. Once all that is done, there's something called district championships, which this year is in Massachusetts. This is up to 80 teams. This is a very large event, and it's 4 days. Most of it is the same idea, but you go through when these teams are top-notch. These are kids who are experts in what they do, who can build robots that are unlike almost anything else. And it's just amazing to watch what can happen in these places and see the level of cooperation between kids who have never met each other and just working together to solve problems for the sake of having fun. This year, just real quick, 2 events. The first one is this weekend in 3 days in Waterville. We hope to maybe finally win a blue banner, which is first place. It hasn't happened yet this time. And the second one is in New Hampshire. That's in early April. Just real quick there. So, locally, it's been dampened because of COVID like everything else has, but we pride ourselves on being able to work with businesses and people in the community and try to help get their name out there, try to help them do what they do while working on our robots and getting out there and learning. The Silvernail family, especially with the large donations, as I mentioned, helped us get all that fantastic shop equipment that we use almost every day now, both in robotics and in classrooms. It's in the normal engineering curriculum now. They can learn how to CNC with things. It's amazing. And then you get businesses who want to support what you do, and they get the exposure from it because all the names on our shirts and stuff become associated with what we're being able to do. We're going in for a small town and somehow winning, and then that's what's associated with it. Okay, so for this year, another new game was called Rapid React, and I believe we have the reveal video up here. Hopefully it'll work. It'd be awkward if it doesn't. This was planned. We meant to do this.
So what crew is working on it right now? It's not the pit crew.
This is not our need. We're not
We didn't bring any of the computer people. Are you on the internet? Yes. Are you on the internet? That's probably what it is. Okay, so while they're doing that, I'll explain it. Every year there's a new game with new challenges, and this year had some of the most interesting ones we've ever seen. There is a climbing challenge at the end of the game, which has metal bars at various heights. I don't remember off the top of my head what they are. And you have to find a way to climb with the robot up those varying bars. This one's a bit scary for me as the guy who has to fix everything. It'll go up and latch onto a bar, but to move to the next one, it's swinging wildly around and hitting stuff and breaking stuff. It's really fun when it's someone else's robot. You good? Yay!
Welcome to the 2022 first robotics competition. And this year's game, Rapid React, presented by the Boeing Company. Two alliances of 3 teams each compete to score their cargo balls into the lower hub and the upper hub. They earn additional points if the robots traverse.
Computers, am I right? Again, this is all completely intentional. We meant to do this.
Presented by the Boeing Company. Two alliances of 3 teams each compete to score their cargo balls into the lower hub and the upper hub. They earn additional points if the robots traverse the rungs of their hangar. And robots start each match on one of their tarmacs and may be preloaded with 1 cargo each. During the first 15 seconds, robots are autonomous. Without guidance from drivers, they leave their tarmac, score preloaded cargo, and collect and score additional cargo. During the remaining 2 minutes and 15 seconds, drivers control their robots. They continue to gather up 2 cargo at a time and score cargo in the lower and upper hubs. Cargo scored into either hub count towards the cargo bonus. Launch pads protect robots from contact by opponent robots. Robots may use either terminal, where their human players assist the robots with acquiring cargo. As time runs out, robots race to their hangar and traverse as many rungs as possible. The higher a robot gets, the more points it earns. An alliance that reaches a hangar point threshold is rewarded with the ranking point. The alliance that earns the most points wins the match.
So that probably seems quite complicated, and that's because it is. This is what we get every January. I believe it was January 8th this year is reveal day. Yep, I remembered a thing. We all gather into school to watch them release this Really, Kelsey? To watch them release the video live, and we sit there in the school for several hours on a Saturday just trying to figure out how are we going to do that. And it took a while this year. There's been a lot of extra challenges that we didn't anticipate, but we're really looking forward to it. Yeah. Kelsey. Okay. So now, once we get that, we don't have very long to put a robot together. From reveal to the start of competitions is only about 8 weeks. So it is full into overdrive from that moment. The first 4 days are what we call the strategy session, which is a bit of an overstatement. We sit together in a circle for a bunch of hours on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday and kind of panic on how to figure out the game. And that's it. And eventually by the 4th day, we can pull our heads together, figure, okay, this is our problem. This is how we solve it. This is our problem. This is how we solve it. And then we go from there. The next stage of it, or part 2, as we very creatively called it, is what we call the prototype phase. We are a big fan of internal design competitions. So we send a group of 3 over there and a group of 3 over there and go solve that problem. And if one of them does it well, great. If they don't, try again. And we do that over and over and over again to get the most ideas and the most thinking and the most possible solutions out of everyone involved until we can eventually have a series of solutions that we then put into a robot. From there, it's just starting to build the chassis of the robot, the gearboxes, all of that stuff, and just seeing any weird hurdles we're going to have to solve, any weird jumps we're going to have to make, and from there, just together. We get sub-assemblies together, so for instance, These climber arms right here are their own thing. The intake is its own thing. And over time, we just mesh it together, try and solve everything we can, and it creates a robot over time, somehow. And by the end of it, we hopefully have a functioning robot, and we just start to test it. We have Harry and Cody driving it at least an hour every day, seeing if it's going to do anything weird, seeing when it breaks. It's not if, it's when. And how we're going to solve those problems when they arise. There's always something new, and there's always going to be something challenging about it. And that's just part of the fun. It's what's going to break next, and how do we fix it over and over and over again. And that's just what we do. It's a blast. And I believe we have the robot reveal video. Every year we put together a video for FIRST showcasing what we've built. And this is when other teams can see our work and what we've put together. And maybe it'll work first time this try. Maybe. Yeah, that's that climb I was talking about. The first time we did it, I was about 2 feet away and underneath it to the side. And I was terrified. But it works, and it's fast. I think if we go all out, it's what, 10 seconds? Yeah, under 10 seconds to the top, which is kind of absurd, not gonna lie. And then here is just a couple pictures of it throughout building. This one on the right here, it just doesn't have an intake for some reason. No idea why. But this is what the shop looks like every day. And this is what it's always like being in there. We're always working together. We're always having fun, always solving problems. And it's just what we do. We couldn't do any of it without the help of the community around us. That's why we're so excited to be here tonight. And now we're going to have Harry and Cody drive it around a little bit, show you what it can do, hopefully not break it. And then we'll do some questions.
So now you're going to show us how this works.
Yes.
Great. This is the first time it's being seen from outside of the high school. We are privileged. Are we not proud to be supporting the Bucksport High School school system with our tax dollars? Folks, this is good, well-spent money. Very, very excellent. I want you to be thinking if you have a question, and to get started, we will have a roving mic, so we'll be able to handle that. Afterwards, all of our students, I promise, because they got here, I don't even know that they had supper, so we made some grub together, and our guest students are going first to enjoy whatever's over there. But meanwhile, can one of you tell me ways that you think robotics are helping us now as a nation? How are robotics helpful? Can you give us an example where a robot might be used?
Ooh, that's a broad one. I think a lot of what we do ties into STEM as a general field. So robots as a robot are used in manufacturing and in hospitals and power plants, but a lot of the principles of what we're doing and the design and all that are applied to engineering courses and designing products everywhere, every day. It's just bringing the same things that are already in the real world into a school environment to teach kids how to use them, how to work together.
You mentioned STEM, and for those of you who may not know, that means science, technology, engineering, and what's the M stand for? Mathematics. So I heard you say something about medicine, medical usage, and you mentioned something else, and I didn't quite hear it.
I was thinking in hospitals and factories, just because that's the first things I could think of. I think Harry had something.
Yeah. So every year the game is actually based off something, and this year they decided to base it off. It's sponsored by Boeing, and it's based off shipping things. So
Right.
Robots are used all the time in companies like Amazon, Boeing, moving packages around. How you get your stuff in 2 days, a lot of it is done by robots.
That's remarkable. Does anyone have a guess on how robotics might help us in the future? Any ideas where that might go?
I would say to an extent everywhere. Not necessarily in replacing normal human labor or anything in any way, but it makes everything safer for us. If you have a person, let's say, assembling a bridge, hypothetical, pulled out of thin air, it's a lot safer to have them do that with robotic and computer help than without it.
Right.
In hospitals especially, just because that's where my parents work and what I'm familiar with, they use that technology in helping people get better every day. They use those things to help keep them safe as workers so they can continue doing the good work that they do. And I can only see that growing exponentially in the future.
Thank you. I think it gives us a little bit of an idea. Now, I'm wondering if there are people who have questions. So I want to get this on camera as well as, Corey, how can we do this? I know we're going to have a mic, but I want to be able to see the people. So what do you suggest we do here? We have viewers in Florida tonight, among other places. If we can just, okay. And if you will stand and speak closely into the microphone so we can hear you. We'll start with Mr. Peterson, who gave us the stage lighting, and we appreciate him. He's a great neighbor.
First off, I have an observation to make. When you had your little technical difficulty, I tried to observe how you would work and your mannerisms to solve the problem. All I saw was teamwork, okay? The presenter kept going, a little bit of humor, but I saw the teamwork, and I thought that was very impressive. Even when I made a comment, you still kept moving forward towards the solution. Now, this one's for the programmers. who's the programmer? Any programmers in the group tonight? Now, if there's no programmers, I'm not going to ask my AI question, okay? Oh, okay, all right. So if I understood correctly, there's a time when it's autonomous, okay? So it has to adjust to make a shot. Is there any kind of AI where you're developing something so if it's off kilter, it automatically understands what it needs to do to fix that problem? And I'll sit down.
The generic aspect of it is we program it to rotate a certain amount of degrees. But on here is what called the limelight, and on the up on the where we got to score, there's a little reflective tape, and so it will sense where that reflective tape is, and it will auto-correct the aim of where it's got to go. And this happens in Tonic, but this also happens with Harry driving. He uses that as navigator, so he can just hit and hold the button, and majority of the robot will turn to where it has to go, making him have to do less work, and making it more of a chance of him scoring instead of it just missing.
Thank you. My friend, Mr. Worcester, who owns the rock shop over on Rhode Island, right?
Yes.
I'm giving you a little commercial here on
Okay.
national television, so
It's on the back of their shirts, too.
it's on the back of your shirt. See,
Um,
you're winning in all places, including Brown Hall Community Room, right?
Right.
All right,
Okay,
Mr.
so-
Worcester, why don't you give us
So
your
a few
question?
days ago, to add to the robotics in the future, like he says, it's just exponential of what it's going to do in the future. I just saw, and maybe somebody else saw it too, in a restaurant, this robot came out with the finished meals on the plate and came out and served it to the table. And I just thought that was really cool. And I naturally thought of the robotics team. That's what they're learning how to do.
Wonderful. Thank you. Corey, would you take the mic? We're not going to probably use robots, though, at our famous summer bean suppers, Ellen, so I'm sure you'll live with that. Yeah. All right. Other questions? My friend Bill Sturicks, who's in here today from Orrington and Bucksport.
Very impressive, but I have to ask, what is the 6329?
So with the amount of teams that FIRST has, I believe it's over 5,000 at this point, it would be a lot harder to keep track of everyone if we're going off names. So we have a name, the Bucks Wrath, but as a team joins for its rookie season, they're given a number. For us, it was 6329 because that was the number team we were when we joined. Every team has one. Just to pull a few, 128, 78, and to us, those are groups that we identify them to. So eventually it becomes your identity. It's initially assigned as more of a, okay, this is your number, and then you sort of take it on, and it becomes part of who you are as a group.
All
I
right.
hope that answers that.
Thank you. Another question on this side of the room. Yes. My good friend Hans, author of a new book out, I'm sure.
Anyway, I think you guys are fantastic as a team. And what you're doing, I really hope the whole town supports you fully in it. But I have one question. It's a little delicate. Traditionally, robots, you know, the boys played with the robots and the trucks, and the girls played with the dolls and that kind of thing. I'd like to ask the young ladies here how you got into this and what you see as the future for women in robotics and engineering.
Hold the mic closer, because some of us are having trouble hearing, dear.
Is this better? There we
That's better.
Okay.
All right, so
Set the mic off
just
on me.
start again if you'd
Okay.
be patient with those of us with hearing impairment.
So I've always been interested in like science, math, anything like engineering, hands-on. And so from like a young age, I would like always do all that kind of stuff. And like once I started robotics, I started in 7th grade doing the middle school version, which is a lot smaller and not even close to this. It got me more interested in it, and like I see myself having a future in engineering, some form. I'm more into like biological engineering stuff, but that's definitely something that I'm interested in, and I know a lot more people are interested in it. I don't know what Hannah wants to do, but I feel like something along engineering lines.
Why don't you pass that over to Anna and let her speak for herself?
So I don't really know what I'm going to go into once I graduate, but I think definitely engineering, some sort of engineering is in the ranks for what I could go into, because I do enjoy robotics quite a bit, and I do think that it is a big part of my life, and to just never do it again after high school would be weird, and I don't think I would enjoy that. So yeah.
But you feel included in this effort.
Yes.
There's not boys versus.
No, I think robotics is definitely just basically one big giant family, and if we lost even one of our members, I think it would be quite a loss. I
Right.
mean, I don't think.
Isn't that the way community is supposed to function, without regard to gender and all this other mess?
They're also smarter.
Well put, son. You're going to do well in life if you got that straight. Other questions from the floor? All right, my good friend up front here is Nancy Minot, who. Yeah, go ahead, Nancy.
I just think it's amazing. I mean, engineering is nothing. My head can't even wrap around it. I like math, but this is just very, very impressive. I'm wondering if you might speak as to the role of Mike in this. Rather than asking Mike, I'm going to, just because as a teacher, you know, there's that role, and it's delicate sometimes. You just seem to just be handling this all on your own, so I'm just curious what part he plays in that for your team.
Well, for me, starting off as a freshman, I went in and knowing nothing. And while the other mentors happened, people like Gross and our other Boynton, he's more of the coder side, I learned all I know is from them. And so they pass it down, so they teach me as best they can. So while they are operating the robot and you see us doing a lot on it, all what we know has come from them mentoring us and showing us how to do it. And even like when I've been doing this for 3 years now, and I'm nowhere near as good as doing as they are. They can help me, like if you have a question, they know it, and they can always help us out, and we don't have to worry about, oh, what do I do now? What's the next step? Did I screw this up forever? No, they can always help you out. Most of the times, but.
Someone else want to speak? Go ahead.
This is a much different relationship than, say, athletics with an athlete or a coach. I mean, in my case, Gross has been a teacher for me on multiple occasions, and our other main mentor, Boynton, was my soccer coach. But this is a very different attitude. It's not one person teaching everyone else. It's everyone working together. We're getting all of our knowledge from them, absolutely. But it's still a group effort. We're still all out there together, banging on that one nut, trying to make the screw go into the bot. And it's just, I mean, he grades my paper, so I can't say anything too much. But
I'm sure he's very fair.
It's an entire group effort. Everyone's together. We're all learning from each other. It's just awesome.
That was Mr. Peterson's point about working together as a team, and tonight you exhibited that, and that's a lesson for our community. I'm seeing my good friend in the back, Tracy Hare, and Tracy, why don't you stand and speak?
Hi. Wow. My dog would love that machine, so if you ever get rid of it, let me know. I'm super impressed, and I want to go back to high school. I think I've been out of high school for like 30 years. But I want to ask you, when you're prepping for a competition, what do you do to get ready for that in your head? Like I know, like when people play football or something, they're preparing themselves. What do you guys do to get ready for that big competition?
Okay, so I know me personally, I get very stressed out the week of, and I'm sure a lot of these guys can contest to that. But I think the main thing is making sure you're organized and making sure that you have everything in line. You make lists and you make so you can check everything off, and you make sure you have everything. Make sure you have everything right in your head even. Like I know I have a notes app on my phone, and I just write everything down as I think of it, and I make sure I get everything done before the competition comes. And that's just how I make myself function, really.
I already have my bag packed. I've had it packed for a week. So if I'm forgetting anything, I shouldn't be.
That's great, great response. Enthusiasm is really such an important part in education, isn't it? It's wonderful. Knowledge on fire. And the credit, as my friend Nancy Minot mentioned, teachers do so very much for all of our students. And I think, Mike, you and your colleague, John, I believe.
Yes, John Boynton. When we started this endeavor, we discussed this about 6 years ago and thought it might be a cool thing to do. And neither one of us, either John or myself, had ever built a robot before.
Right.
I'm from a background in construction. He was a math teacher, did a little bit of coding, but not much. So when we jumped into this, we saw our first event after we signed up, and we said, what have we gotten ourselves into? So when the kids say that, that John and I know all the things to keep them going, we do not. We brainstorm this all as a group. So when they say, Mr. Gross, how are we going to climb to that top bar? I said, I don't know. How are we? And we figured it out together. And it's a great working relationship we have, because they'll go home at night, and then they come back in the next morning and say, I have it solved. We're going to do this, and they basically are the problem solvers.
Wouldn't it be wonderful if our governments would learn to work like that? All right. There's a question in the back. Corey, I guess it's Catherine.
Hi. Yes, it does take a lot of teamwork, but I think you've got to have the teachers and the leaders who have the right attitude and approach to this whole thing. It's not just disseminating information, right? It's letting them be problem solvers, and understanding that as a teacher and a leader is so important, and I give you lots of credit on that, Mike.
All right.
Thank you.
I want to make sure everybody gets to ask a question first, and then I'll go for seconds. Okay, my good friend Chris Cook from Penobscot.
Well, Orland.
Or Orland? Yeah. All right, I'll do penance for the mistake.
I'm interested in how much Mr. Gross will let you fail and fail and fail until you figure it out, or is he as unknowledgeable as you and you're all figuring it out together?
You want to take that one, Cody?
Speak into the mic. We all want to hear this one.
So, I wouldn't necessarily word as fail, but they definitely push us. Like, they want us to do the best they can, and we can't learn if we're just living in their shadow and doing what they tell us to do. So they want us, like, if it's something that there's no way, like, we really can't get it, then yes. But if it's something like you really want, like, they want us to try our hardest. They want us to give it a shot. They want us to fail and then revamp it and realize, oh, wait, I know what to do. They don't want to just have to do it, because then we're not going to learn how to do it ourselves. So they really want to push us to be able to solve that problem ourselves and revamp it over time. And if it comes to the point, like, it just don't need it, they'll be more happy to step in. But they don't just step in and do it. They show us how to do it, and they walk us through it, and they take us and show us how to do it without doing it for us.
There's a phenomenon in the shop where, especially for me and Cody, we suffer this a lot. We'll sit there at the table for an hour and a half trying to make this thing worse, and then Gross walks up and just does it. And we have no idea how, and it's magical.
I just want to give an example real quick. At our last open house where we had for the 8th graders when they came up and checked out the high school, we did a little demo, and our robot, one of the wires got caught in the drivetrain, so the intake just stopped working, and Mr. Gross was there, and he kind of just stepped back and he said, figure it out, and we did, and that's kind of what being a mentor is a lot of times. So he knows we can do it, so he pushes us and lets us figure it out on our own.
Thank you. I'm going to take, did everyone, okay, I've got two people on this side who have not asked a question. I'm going to call on And then I'm going for seconds after that, okay? And your hand's up too? Well, I know who you are, so I'm going to call on you in a minute, Abby Rose. All right, let me ask my colleague, Mary Powell, who's the Executive Director of Main Street Bucksport, and she's got a question for you.
Yeah, I'm so proud of you guys. I'm Bucksport High School class of '82, and I would brag on you to anyone, but I know what it's like to be from the small place, and you said that earlier. What is it that you're bringing to this that is causing you to whip much bigger, more elite funded, polished, think they're polished teams? What have you got? Because you've got something, and it's really impressive.
So those teams that have the funding from NASA, they have the engineering mentors, they all have amazing resources to work with. But we just kind of work well together. I don't know how else to explain it, but even outside of the shop, we're all great friends. I mean, I talk to Kelsey more than anyone else I know. We leave and we're still thinking robot. It's midnight and you can't sleep and you're like, that's how you do that. It's just constant, and you always want to be there, and you always want to be a part of it. And that, as far as I'm concerned, is the key. And it looks like Cody just had an idea.
All right, I've got it. Was someone? I'm going to Colleen. I'm sorry, what?
Do you mind if
Oh, you did have another answer.
yeah.
I thought people said, no, I don't. Go ahead.
I will say, I think a big part of it is the fact that we may not have as much as those bigger teams have really means that bond between each other and the dedication we have for this robot. This wasn't just given to us. Everyone in the team has put in like so many hours into it. It's impossible to just let it go. You need to, everyone is so dedicated to this for months on end that we basically build our lives around it. And so that when a team works that well together, it really lets us rise over a bunch of other teams that might not put so much value into what they've made.
Thank you. Colleen Gross, you had a question. This is Mike's partner, co-owner of Verona Wine and Design.
And very proud of this group, very proud of my husband, and it's so exciting. I've never been a real sports follower. I hate to say it, I'm embarrassed. I don't do the basketball and football and all that. But I'm so into robots. And it's so much fun to watch these kids compete. My question to all of you guys, yes, you're learning about engineering, you're learning how to build a robot. What I'm interested in, as a volunteer mentor, which is another thing I'd like you guys to talk about, but besides building and engineering, are there any other life skills that you feel that you have gained by being in this program and following through?
I've learned one big one. I've learned to socialize so much better now, because when you're at competitions, you have to, you're not forced, but you have to talk to people if you want to understand. And going into this, I kind of sat there. I did what I was told. I didn't really speak up. But now going through this has taught me that it's okay to speak up. It's okay to give ideas. And it makes me a better person, because I'm not so afraid to talk to people. I'm like, yeah, I'll go ask them that question. And it's no big deal now. So it's really taught me that.
Along the lines of what Cody just said, I would never be talking on a stage. I've always just never talked, in front of big groups and stuff. And so this is something new, but being part of the pit crew, I'm gonna have to be able to talk to people. I'm gonna have to be able to, explain things and, actually know how to talk to people and socialize, which is a very big part of robotics. And it's helped me a lot with that.
I want to take Abby Rose's question. So let's get over there. Abby, take your mask off. All right.
I love to take things apart because a long time ago I took a radio apart with my dad. and it's really fun.
I agree.
I missed it, but I'll listen to the tape.
Do
Okay.
you guys like taking things apart?
It's a lot easier.
How many times have the transmissions come apart in that robot in this past week?
All of them. All the times.
All right. My last question of the night is with my good friend and colleague, the Reverend Douglas Warren Down from the Congregational Church in Little Deer Isle. And he's going to ask something that I didn't think of, I'm sure.
Well, just a quick question. How long did the entire process take from conception to completion? When was this actually completed?
Well, it's never really complete. I think we had half the drivetrain out about 4 hours ago. We have about 8 weeks to build a robot. We discovered this game on January 8th. So it's between now and then that we have gone through all those designs, done all that prototyping, built this robot, tore it apart, built it again, and just learned it inside and out, trying to make it as good as it can be.
I will say that quite literally last week, it was the end of the week, it was Friday, we tore the robot completely apart because there was something that wasn't working. We could not figure out what. So everything came off. The shooter was off, the intake was off, the climber was off. We took apart basically the entire electrical system and then put it all back together in time for Monday. I think it was done. So that was pretty great.
I'm so glad we have children here tonight because they are looking to you and their future and seeing both young men and young women being part of this and heading in the Bucksport system. For those of you who have joined us by way of the internet, this is Brown Hall Community Center, and this program has featured our award-winning, wonderful high school robotics team, and this crowd is going to give them a warm round of applause for their show and tell tonight. Now, on the table, you have some things. Can anyone answer what's on the table? Because I know you brought some things for people to take home. I'm not sure what.
So on the table, way on the end there, you see a bunch of our awards. That's just everything we've won over all of our seasons. There's a couple news articles. There's a couple that's an intro and drivetrain. So we can talk about that with you if you are interested. On the end here, we have some pamphlets that you can take and some bracelets and buttons if you're interested in that as well.
Yeah. With that, if anyone else has any questions, feel free to come up and ask.
You're going to be available afterwards.
Yeah, we all love talking about this stuff. It's just what we do. So feel free.
Please avail yourself. It's wonderful to have young people here. The young people.